I have a vague feeling about that too, although I remember nothing from the times.
We did smoke too much, probably.
Story of my life, bruh. Radio Free Innsmouth episode 377. So there's sort of a philosophical concept, bit of a heavy metal epistemological construction going on. The Big Four. There's always a Big Four somewhere. With American thrash metal, it was Megadeth, Slayer, Metallica, and Anthrax. 90s Visual K, you got Malice Miser, Fanatic Crisis, Lacrima Christi, and Shazna. Old school Florida death metal, you got Morbid Angel, Obituary, Deicide, and Death. With broads, you got Geo, and Special Halloween Geo with the witch hat. Apparently with German thrash, you got Creator, Sodom, Destruction, and Tankard.
You serious?
I'm not so sure about that one. I think you're better off pretending that the Swiss are Germans and you just include Coroner at the end, but whatever. But perhaps the most balanced Big Four of all is that of Swedish death metal. Because there, the most universally agreed upon lineup is Entombed. Unleashed. Dismember. And Grave. And honestly, all four of them are spectacular. Dismember is, without reservation, my personal favorite, but second place could go to any of those other three bands, depending on the mood I'm in. And if you don't like any of them...
And I got news for you. That means you
fucking annoying.
야, 나를 완전 제대로 잡아.
Look, I'm sorry, but I swear to God, every time I bring up Swedish death metal, some bozo out there gotta be like, oh, those boring bands, I listen to real death metal, like, insert boring-ass band here. Nobody cares! The death metal chainsaw is still unequaled as a distributor of gory savagery, despite the attempts of every wannabe hardcore band pretending to play death metal in the modern age to ruin the sound. Anyways, this episode is about fucking Grave, who are generally seen as the most pure death metal, the most primitive and brutal of the Swedish Big Four. And yeah, I generally agree with that. Like, if you're a big Mortician fan, Grave is probably going to be your favorite Swedish death metal band. But I think there is a little bit more to them than that. There's more going on with Grave than Grave is usually given credit for. For starters, they have one of the lengthiest Swedish death metal histories, going back to 1986, when they were called Corpse, and they were playing some very brutal early death metal on the island of Gotland, as opposed to Stockholm, like all the other Swedish death metal bands. If you don't know the demo era of Grave, you're missing out, because it's some wacky shit. 1986, Corpse's Black Dawn demo. Parts like this actually remind me a lot of demo era Dark Throne, sort of a gloomy, epic thrash metal sound, mixed with a more savage death metal undercurrent. Speaking of which, this riff sounds like it could have come right off of the Grave's debut album from years later. It's got that ultimate Grave transition, the snare hits marking off the accents. And when the vocals kick in, you get some real intense death metal, especially for 1986, same year as what, Master of Puppets? Sends it home on a stretcher, etc., etc. And as you're hearing right now, that signature Grave groove is all over the place in between the faster, more blasting parts. They've even got sort of an ultra-primitive version of the Swedish chainsaw going. Plenty of cool drumming from Jensa Paulsen, and obviously, as you heard throughout that sample, Ola's guitars and Jorgen's vocals are impeccable. Not sure why, like, 80s Grave, or in this case, Corpse, isn't a little bit more talked about in terms of being super important early death metal. I mean, this is a year before Scream Bloody Gore, bro. And it's from fucking Visby, where, like, I'm pretty sure there weren't a lot of other super brutal bands running around at the time. In fact, during the process of changing their name from Corpse to Grave, the other Grave guys had to start another band up, sort of a side project called Putrifaction that is very much worth your time. You might be familiar with their Painful Death demo if you watched Hellcast back in the day. If you missed Hellcast, it was something of a precursor to the Dead by Dog stuff. But instead of just Justin, you had a couple of the Horville brothers.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
And you didn't have a bunch of metalcore kids and Christian boomers writing in asking shit like, "Hey J-Dog, what do you think of poop come out of the butt?" halcyon days of yesteryear. Anyways, those guys are big on Putrifaction's Painful Death, mostly because of one singular moment. And it happens about 5 seconds into the title track of the demo. In fact, I think it's right here. Yeah, whatever the fuck that fucked up noise was, that was sick. Wasn't even actually Jorgen doing the vocals there, it was the drummer Jensa. Anyways, this shit's even more fucked up, primitive, and chaotic than Grave and Corpse are. Although a lot of that savagery and chaos would later on be absorbed into what Grave would end up doing on the full-length albums. Which is why Putrifaction is actually pretty important for overall Grave history. But more importantly than that, this demo is just amazing in its own right. I mean, check out this fucking groove riff coming up right here. Some of the most fucked up shit ever.
That's what's up.
Like, bro, if they brought Putrifaction back, I'd probably buy the album. Whole lot of vaguely grindcore influenced, hyper thrashy, hyper sloppy fucking actual caveman death metal, not that maggot stomp shit. Like I said, if you skip the demos of Grave and their associated other projects from the time period, you're really fucking missing out. Speaking of which, let's finally hit up a Grave demo, of which there's a fuck ton. My personal favorite is 1988's Sick Disgust Eternal. This demo actually has an unexpectedly technical thrash metal sort of feeling to it. Like this right here, this is actually the title track off of their debut LP, Into the Grave. You almost might not even recognize it. It's got this whole extra intro section called Pacemaker Death. Probably wouldn't have fit on the LP version, but it works really fucking cool on the demo version. And eventually the riffs you recognize do start to creep out right around here. You recognize this part?
Oh, there you are, Peter.
But it's still different than the album version. It's got a much different sort of feel to it. Kind of a mix of a more grinding approach, but also sort of a melancholic, darkened vibe that, again, surprisingly enough, reminds me a lot of Dark Throne's very early demos, like Snowfall or even Land of Frost. And I love those, so I love this. And it's got all the Grave signatures as well. The 2 beats, the brutal vocals, the suffocating guitar sound, the ultra primitive feel, the unholy lyrics. It's all there, just in a more primitive form. But eventually, come 1991, they did get a full-length album out, the classic Into the Grave. I think by this point they had actually moved to Stockholm, but I could be wrong. It is recorded at Studio Sunlight, like every other big Swedish death metal album at the time. But they actually managed to get a completely different sound out of that studio than any of the other Swedish bands. It's still Chainsaw, but it ain't Entombed Dismember Carnage Chainsaw. It's its own fucked up, weird sound that I don't think anybody has really managed to capture since then. This is also the point where Jorgen Sandstrom became my personal favorite Swedish death metal vocalist. And he only managed to get better from here. I'm not even like a huge Project Hate fan, but sometimes I'll put on their albums just to hear his vocals. Anyways, this riff set right here, fucking nasty. From what I remember, fucking Brett Stevens doesn't even like Grave, but even he's admitted that in terms of aesthetics, this might be the most masterfully done Swedish death metal album. Like, bro, check out this fucking change-up. If you don't like that, you don't like death metal, etc., etc. Also, nice little Dave Lombardo ride cymbal bit. And speaking of Dave Lombardo and Slayer, you know they gotta be some solos on here, right? And of course there are. Very Slayer-esque, very chaotic, frenzied, almost nonsensical. Perfect for what this band's doing. And they maintain some of that gloomy feeling from the demos in the more down-tempo portions of the music, like right here. Also, the solo that leads out of this part is really fucking cool sounding. Just this tremolo-picked ooze of whammy bar shenanigans. Gotta love the ultra-primitivism of the first Grave album. But it's not all ultra-primitive. I'm not about to say they get really melodic at any point, but they do have their more sophisticated moments, like on my personal favorite song on the album, Obscure Infinity. Like this right here, it's not melodic death metal, but it's Grave melodic, if that makes any fucking sense. Then this crunchy fucking riff that comes after it. Super nice and has a really cool drum trick right at the end of it.
Yeah, buddy.
Then after that wacky drum part, you get a more straight version of the riff. Gives you a great opportunity to hear Jorgen's cool fucking vocals before we go into this fucking crushing section of riffs. Fucking bolt thrower if they got a railroad spike shoved through their head, Phineas Gage style. Way fucking dumber and way fucking angrier. And then there's another cool drum thing that happens right here. And that takes us into another section of stuff that's, again, not melodic, but it's Grave melodic. You know, nice little doomy lead guitar. Riffs are very distinct and catchy. Whatever you call this type of stuff, I dig it. And it's got one of the better solos on the album coming out of it too. Not quite melodic, not quite shredding, but grave melodic and grave shredding. You dig? I'm hoping if you're calling yourself some kind of death metalist, you already own this album, but if you don't, fucking go out and get it. It's into the grave, bro. It's essential. It's like being into high fantasy and not reading Lord of the Rings, fucking poser-ass gamer girl shit. A year later, they follow it up with another all-time classic, You'll Never See, which actually manages to be rather different from Into the Grave, although it's still a pretty obvious continuation of what was going on there. Guitar sound is shifted up a little bit, a little more standard Swedish, maybe comparable to what Unleashed did on their third album, but still recognizable as a grave guitar sound. The real shift here is with the songwriting, though. Song structures are a lot more dynamic and varied. Songs overall are longer, have more of an epic feeling to them. They're simultaneously somehow catchier than they were on the debut. Do not sleep on You'll Never See. Any only Into the Grave posers out there, I got news for you. Fucking damn right. Check this part out. Some people say the vocal patterns are a little homeboyish. These people are idiots. Might as well accuse Tom Araya of rapping on Rain and Blood. What these vocal patterns are is catchy as fucking all get out. Like, the vocal patterns alone on this album get stuck in my fucking head. And when you combine that with these riffs, you get this apocalyptic, devastating sort of atmosphere. Every song on this album feels like an utterance from an angry god. I mean, check out that fucking reverb there, dude. Them echoes. And that takes us into this ultra brutal, ultra blasphemous mid-paced sort of section. And I do mean ultra blasphemous. Check this shit out. Like full-on inversion of Bible verses. Grave are probably the most evil sounding of the Swedish Big Four. Or at least they're very much tied with Dismember in that regard. And again, some real fucking cool soloing, not melodic, but again, it's grave melodic, dude. They got their own way of doing some melodic type shit, and boy did it ever fucking work out for them on this album. What also worked out for them on this album is that more standard Swedish guitar tone. It's not as unique as what they had on their first, but it lets them do interesting Swedish death metal type shit. Like that whole thing where you kind of make the guitar like burp, or this weird bouncing thing. I don't know how to fucking describe it. You know it when you hear it. Like this. That sort of thing. Fucking heavy as shit. With a nice little lead guitar accent. This song, A Morbid Way to Die, actually was on their 1989 Sexual Mutilation demo. But with this new sound kind of dictating how they've recomposed the song, it's basically an entirely new entity. Some people will say the Swedish chainsaw is a crutch. These people are idiots, they're missing the point. When properly done, the Swedish chainsaw essentially turns the guitar into almost a completely new instrument. Completely different timbre, completely different sort of feeling to everything. And it's kind of the only sound that can make these particular style guitar riffs work. You don't play a Swedish death metal guitar the same way you play a normal death metal guitar. It's its own thing. This transition section right here kicks fucking ass. Grave are always really good at varying up their songs, inserting new sections while keeping everything very natural and catchy sounding. Speaking of that kind of shit, like, goddamn, dude, this album has so many fucking memorable moments like that. Fucking love Jorgen's vocals. Like I said, he gets better every release. Speaking of which, the next Grave release, the controversial Grave release, the last one with Jorgen on vocals, and the one that was kind of a jumping off point for a lot of more death metal, purity-minded people back in the day. The third album, Soulless. Anybody shits on this album, I couldn't disagree more. This is my personal favorite Grave album. It's the first one I heard. It still blows my mind to this day. Yeah, there's the And Here I Die Satisfied EP came out in between You'll Never See and Soulless. Kind of a fun curiosity. Doesn't really fucking matter, because all the new songs on that ended up being redone for Soulless anyways, with a much heavier sound. Here's a little eye doctor type experiment. Is it better number one? Or fucking number two? Yeah, that's what I fucking thought. This album's controversial. People accuse it of being part of the Pantera-fication of death metal in the mid-90s.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
For starters, these guys weren't even influenced by Pantera. I read the interviews. The groove influence on this album comes from fucking prong, which is way cooler, and it means that, yeah, there's gonna be some pretty crushing grooves, but it also means they're gonna be opening up the textures and the atmosphere a lot more. So it ain't a dumbing down at all, and it works perfectly with the newfound complexity from the prior release. Couple that with one of the best Swedish death metal production jobs of all time. I mean, wait till you hear this fucking bass guitar. You end up with some of the best shit ever. Even the intro to this album is fucking classic.
Bitches leave.
I mean, listen to that sound. You hearing that bass? You hearing those guitars? And speaking of that texture opening up, watch this little fade through transition here. And the vocals are sick as fuck. He's got an effect here. It's sort of a Steven Wilson telephone vocal, but instead of being some prog rock wiener whining about existentialism, it's a serial killer calling you on the phone telling you he's gonna fucking kill you. And they're gonna deliver on that promise once the song fucking speeds up. Wow, this fast Swedish death metal iconic riff. This just sounds like Pantera. Ain't no fucking Pantera on this album. Shut your goddamn mouth. Got some sick Slayer-style dissonant solo trade-offs, all on top of these nasty, grinding, fast fucking death metal riffs, and some more classic Jorgen Sandstrom vocal utterances done at the exact right time, the exact right cadence for maximum memorability and impact. And then that groove section hits. And does it ever fucking hit? Here's that cool kind of opening up of different sonic textures thing I was talking about. That riff comes in real heavy on the palm mutes, kind of choked out sounding. Then it turns into this expansive, echoing sort of thing with the extra guitars going in the back. Very clever songwriting, especially for such primitive, brutal material. My personal favorite Grave song on this release was actually the title track on the EP that came out before it, And Here I Die Satisfied. This one has some of the nastiest, groove-inflected death metal shit I've ever heard. Up there with shit like Seance, Baphomet, maybe even Suffocation. Got you some of those more, not melodic, but grave melodic type riffs, and a nice little grinding counterpoint to that grave melodic intro before we get into these crushing fucking riffs. Again, ain't nothing in fucking Pantera or Korn that sounds like this kind of stuff. Unless you go to the most basic essentials of the music, i.e. loud bass guitar, detuned lead guitars, that kind of thing. Might as well call Dehumanized a Limp Bizkit cover band at that point. Stop being stupid. God damn, these fucking Jorgen vocals, dude. Nasty stuff. Really fucking vile sounding mixture of growls and screams. Going into another awesome groove riff right here that's about to turn into my favorite section of any fucking Grave song. This sort of breakdown bit going on. That's what's known in the business as that good shit. Perfect utilization of that signature Grave style of almost anti-melody. And you got the textural variation, slightly varying up how they hit you with those groove riffs, as this riff is constantly morphing and changing from a timbre standpoint. And you got this sick fucking, almost Autopsy-esque lead guitar, slimily slinking its way over the top of all that fracas. Grave Soulless is undoubtedly one of the best death metal albums of the 90s. If you don't like it, I question your judgment. The album that came after this, Hating Life, I feel about that one the way most people seem to feel about fucking Soulless. Wasn't a fan of that at all. I don't really care for too much of the post-Jorgen Sandstrom Grave stuff. I mean, it's fine, I guess, and they're fun to see live. But those first 3 Grave releases and the demos, that's all essential fucking death metal. Hopefully you agree with me. Even if you didn't, you're wrong. But thanks for listening or watching or whatever you did, and I'll fucking see you next time.
I gotta try and take a shit.